maybe also moving on from defensive lineman Milton Williams and linebacker Josh Sweat and all-pro linebacker Zack Baun, all three heading toward free agency. And for the great year that Baun had, now just because they're heading toward free agency doesn't mean they're leaving. A lot of times in that 52-hour window, guys see what other teams are offering and they decide to take the offer to stay where they are. But, maybe Baun had that great year, and I don't want to take anything away from the player, but when you've got an incredible defensive line in front of you, effing up the play, it makes it a little easier than it otherwise would be to flow to the ball and make the tackles, right? When Jalen Carter is throwing people around, it's easier to get to the ball. Again, Baun still had a fantastic year, but the Eagles are making the assessment that whatever his value would be based upon the year he had, they don't see it, and they're not willing to pay it, and they think they can find another Zack Baun this year to plug into that spot.
Yeah, well, they lost the linebacker, right, after the first Super Bowl to the Chicago Bears in free agency, right? So I think there's probably a little of that thought. Zack Baun, this is his first really marquee, special year in the NFL. So I can't imagine just off of 1 year, just like we talk about quarterbacks and everything else, teams aren't just going to go, well, look, he had this 1 year. It's time to pay him like a top linebacker in football. That's what we're going to do. No, I think if he's back there, it'll be for the right number. And like you said, he has a gauge of the market, and he goes, you know what, where I was at was pretty damn good. I'll take the 1 or 2 year deal and then continue to put another good or 2 years out there to where I could get a long-term deal. But you said it right. They got players too. I'm interested to see which one of those they kind of make the best offer to. Josh Sweat, we know, is top-tier defensive end. Milton Williams is an incredible D-tackle / run-stopping D-end who can do it all. I would think they make a run at one of those guys to try to make them and stay home. But I just don't know which one it'll be. And to your point, like you said, they got some young players that are going to be commanding huge contracts very soon. Jalen Carter is going to be one of those guys after this season where if he asks to be the highest paid defensive tackle in football, you and me are going to be like, yes, please, he should be. He's the best. And so they got to worry about that too. They got a few things that they need to get right here.
Jalen Carter, who, as we learned last week, has a pregame ritual that includes falling asleep, waking up, and kicking ass.
Our kind of guy.
That's the Jalen Carter way. And Sweat had 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl. He caused one of the interception made by Baun, by shoving Joe Thuney into Patrick Mahomes. Sweat got 4.5 out of 20 Super Bowl MVP votes. So, yeah. He falls into that Dexter Jackson, Larry Brown, the Cowboys cornerback, even though they both were Super Bowl MVPs and Sweat wasn't. He falls into that category. Even Desmond Howard, who wasn't he the MVP of Super Bowl 31?
Yeah, he was.
Turner parlayed it into a big contract with the Lions, I believe.
Right.
Did he go to the Lions?
I think it was.
Big contract. You have that big game in the big spot, and you get a contract offer that your prior team just can't even begin to match. That Super Bowl ring for the Eagles might have cost them Sweat because there's going to be somebody else out there that overpays. And I keep waiting in this era of free agency for teams to try to disrupt the super teams. We saw with the Cowboys. One of the reasons the Cowboys fell apart is because that's when free agency really took off, and every year there were teams targeting the best players on the Cowboys that were available in free agency. I could see other teams saying, we'll overpay Williams and Sweat and Baun
I could see
just to make sure they don't go back to Philadelphia.
Right, and their years were impressive. Teams that are desperate to improve, they're going to go, wait, these guys can play. We're going to do that. I'm Milton Williams is phenomenal. I guess he's the one I see that probably won't be back. That would be my guess because they got a lot of D tackles and big guys. Pass rushers, on the other hand, with Josh Sweat, right? We know they have Nolan Smith, who looks like he's going to be something special, and they might have to pay him in about 2 years. But there's the Bryce Huff, who they're paying a lot of money to. Is there a future there with that? What are they going to do with that situation, right? And Brandon Graham, by all due accounts, is going to retire. So if they lose Josh Sweat here, they could get thin at this position pretty quickly. I would think they make some sort of a respectable, close to the market type of offer to him to keep him around. I don't know. That's just my thought when you evaluate their roster and where they're at. But again, if there's one team like you're talking about that just loves him, or two, and they blow that number the Eagles have in mind out of the water, then that'll make life very tough on what they want to do.
Not unless they got something up their sleeve that involves a guy whose arms are as big as a large person's legs. Myles Garrett. We talked about that yesterday.
I know, and that would be incredible. And they are the type of team that could do that, certainly. But they're a team also that has proven, man, they can draft and develop, and part of the reason they got this machine looking like it's never going to end is they haven't made those type of deals where they go chase one guy. They've been the team that's had the players that people chase their guys. And then Howie and company all use the draft picks accordingly, and then they've built a super team. I mean, and then they just sprinkle in a free agent here and there. But damn, you look at their football team and the guys that are on their roster, and it's a Pro Bowl roster, you go, holy crap. A.J. Brown and C.J. Gardner-Johnson are about the only two that weren't homegrown and they're from Philadelphia. Everybody else is. And that's where I would just say, I don't know, be careful about trading those picks away for a Myles Garrett. And I still don't believe it. I think that's an inside job. People in Philly know Andrew Berry, and they're doing a solid, and they're disrupting the system maybe to what you say people should do to Philly. That's what I think's going on there.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.